Hello everyone, welcome to NoDQ video, post Royal Rumble, as you can see by the bald head on NoDQ.com and the YouTube channel, youtube.com/AaronRiftNoDQ. I have your questions from twitter.com/AaronRift using the hashtag NoDQturns20. So let's go ahead and get started with your questions. First one today comes from Joe Stewart. With the rumored Miz and Braun Strowman match, do you not see this as potentially a better feud than the Universal title picture if he's not winning it? As we know, Braun can destroy anyone like Brock Lesnar, but Miz and co. would they really make it work, I think is your question. Plus, long IC run for Braun. I personally am not really a fan of Braun Strowman versus The Miz. I think it's a misusage of Strowman. Strowman is arguably WWE's hottest star. The guy is on fire. He has gotten over with the fans organically. I think he should be the guy in WWE. They should strap the rocket to this guy, and they already have, but the one thing WWE has not done is make him Universal Champion. I think Strowman should be in one of the main events of WrestleMania. And with all due respect to The Miz, I love The Miz. He's been tremendous as of late. The Miz is not at that level. Braun Strowman is. Braun Strowman should be in the main event. Miz cuts great promos, but Strowman has the credibility, he has the size and look, he has the momentum going for him right now. He should be in one of the top matches, if not the top match at WrestleMania. The Miz, in my opinion, that match would be a step down for Strowman. Got this one here from Hayden. Hi Aaron, what do you think is next for Finn Balor? I would like to see Balor versus The Miz at WrestleMania 34 for the IC title. I think that this is far more suitable than The Miz facing Braun Strowman. I think The Miz versus Finn Balor makes a lot more sense. To me, The Miz and Strowman, it feels like a mismatch. It feels like there's no chance Miz has of winning the match. You have the Miztourage out there, and that's getting old now. That whole shtick is starting to run its course, in my opinion. But with Miz versus Balor, you have Anderson and Gallows to counteract the Miztourage. I think it makes a little bit more sense to do that match. I feel like Miz and Balor, without the other guys involved, it's a little bit more of an even match. I think they would have a better match together. And you could potentially, if you want, add the other guys and make it a six-man match at WrestleMania. That way everybody gets their big payday and their big WrestleMania moment. I could see either one happening. I would be fine with either one happening at this point. I think Miz and Balor feuding for the IC title is a lot more compelling than Braun Strowman winning the IC title or challenging for the IC title. Just my opinion, though. Got this one here from Tyson. Hey, would it be too predictable to have Ronda Rousey in the Royal Rumble? Or would it have been too predictable to have her in the Rumble? And will we see her and a partner, if not The Rock, face Stephanie and Hunter at WrestleMania? I think that if she was in the Royal Rumble, it would have been predictable. I think people were expecting her to win it. Otherwise, the betting odds would not have been so high for her. I think what WWE did was best, though, because her being in the Rumble would have taken away the intrigue of her first time in a WWE ring in a match. That is something special. I don't think it's a good idea to give that away as a surprise. What WWE did accomplished the same exact thing without her actually wrestling. Her showing up generated the headlines, and WWE saved Ronda Rousey's first actual physical match until WrestleMania. So if anything, WWE did the right thing. If she was in the Royal Rumble and she actually competed, it would have been predictable and it would have wasted that first-time appearance as a surprise at the Royal Rumble when the same thing with the mainstream publicity was accomplished by just having her show up. So that's my take on it. And right now, the talk is that it's going to be a tag team match. That was the original match that was rumored for WrestleMania a couple of years ago. The Rock and Ronda Rousey versus Triple H and Stephanie. The Rock is a big question mark, but going back to earlier, Braun Strowman. Put him in there as Ronda Rousey's partner. Strowman gets the ultimate rub from being Rousey's partner. And you can do the whole Triple H Braun Strowman storyline, which started at Survivor Series. We haven't seen a follow-up yet, so you can continue that. Triple H, Braun Strowman, they can basically carry the match. Stephanie can tag in. Ronda comes in, beats up Stephanie. There you go. Your big WrestleMania Sports Center moment. Strowman gets over. Rousey gets her big moment. Everybody wins. I think that's the match WWE should do. Ronda and Braun Strowman versus Triple H and Stephanie, and have Braun and Rousey with their hands raised in victory, mainstream publicity. Strowman gets all this attention as a mainstream superstar. I like it. Got this one here from Sean T. Flick. What do you think of Ronda Rousey becoming a Paul Heyman girl? I do like the idea because if Ronda struggles with her promos, and she might, I'm not sure how well she'll be able to do. I've heard she's been training at the Performance Center, but has she been doing promos is the question. I would assume she is, and she's getting acting classes and all that. But if she struggles, then yeah, I think it might be a good idea to have Paul Heyman speak for her. Paul Heyman, by the way, I don't think I even mentioned this. Paul Heyman did a tremendous job with that voiceover for NXT TakeOver Philadelphia. That was fantastic. Paul Heyman can make anything seem all that more special. He's one of those few guys that can do it. And I think Heyman would be able to sell Ronda Rousey really well, just like he does for Brock Lesnar. So I'm definitely a fan of it if Ronda needs it. If she doesn't need it, then I don't think it's necessary. With Lesnar, Lesnar's not the greatest promo, and that's why Paul Heyman was brought in. Plus, they're close, they're real-life friends, and Heyman knows Lesnar, he knows the right thing to say. I think it would be the same with Ronda Rousey, just she's the female counterpart to Brock Lesnar. This one comes from Seth Kay. With Shin winning the Royal Rumble, is this going to affect the rumored Fastlane main event? That is a big question mark right now, because that was one of the reasons I was suspicious that Nakamura was going to win the Royal Rumble, because we had that fatal five-way match announced for the Fastlane pay-per-view. And of course, people were saying that match is card subject to change. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. For house shows, I would say that is absolutely the case. But for a pay-per-view, when it's a lot of money for those tickets, you got to be careful about false advertising. We may still get that match. WWE may follow up over the next few weeks with storylines to lead up to that match. We do have Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn coming up next week on SmackDown. Winner gets the title shot at Fastlane. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a one-on-one match at Fastlane. There was no Randy Orton this week. Randy Orton could very well come out, hit a couple of RKOs. Nakamura could somehow get involved and get added to the match, even though he's got the guaranteed WrestleMania shot. Winning the Royal Rumble basically gave him the main event at WrestleMania, or the WWE title match slot at WrestleMania. But Nakamura could be added to that fatal five-way match, win the title, and then defend it at WrestleMania in the rematch. That is something that WWE could do. So we still have a few weeks to see. Keep in mind, Fastlane is after Elimination Chamber. Fastlane is in March. WWE has something like 6 or 7 weeks to build up to this show. They got plenty of time to develop the storylines and set up a main event for that pay-per-view. So nothing's set in stone at this time. This one comes from Cindy. Now that Drave Maverick, aka Rockstar Spud, debuted as the new GM of 205 Live, who will be his first opponent for his future in-ring competition? Great question. I'm going to assume that at some point Rockstar Spud will get into the mix, but I feel like his real strength is his promo ability. He's a great talker, and I think WWE put him in a role that will elevate him. He can talk, and that will establish him well with the WWE Universe. Eventually, he will, I'm assuming, get into the ring and wrestle. Who will his first opponent be? Depends. If he's going to be a babyface, then you would put him up against one of the top heels. If he's a heel, you put him up against one of the top babyfaces. This is all up in the air right now. Maybe Spud will add himself at the last minute. WWE, as of this video, WWE has not announced all the participants in the Cruiserweight title tournament. So who's to say? I mean, Spud could end up being in. Maybe he'll replace somebody. There'll be some sort of injury angle. Any number of things can happen. Right now, it's all up in the air, and he could literally have his first match against anybody. That's a very difficult question to answer right now, but I could see him being against one of the top guys. WWE could do some sort of storyline where one of the top guys mixes it up with Spud. They are at odds, and that leads to the match. This one comes from James W. or James V. Wow. What are your thoughts of Jeremy Borash signing with WWE? Is this a good thing, and what do you think his role will be in WWE? I was very surprised when I heard the news. I was not expecting JB to end up in WWE after all these years. He's been in the wrestling business. Keep in mind, going back to WCW, he used to host WCW Live, and he even appeared on Nitro a few times as Vince Russo's crony. He even did a few announcing appearances in WCW. So he's been around for quite some time. But he never appeared in WWE. He was always a TNA guy. From 2002 on, he was affiliated with TNA/Impact Wrestling. For him to jump to WWE is a huge blow to Impact Wrestling. I feel it will perhaps change the identity of the company, whether it's for the better or worse. That remains to be seen. I mean, one could argue that this is the nail in the coffin. When Jeremy Borash leaves, what else is there? But at the same time, you could potentially have some new creative people get into the mix, and maybe Impact Wrestling needs that. Maybe that's something they need, some fresh blood in there, some new people with some new ideas. Maybe it'll help them, but maybe it's their final nail in the coffin. Time will tell. But again, I don't know when TNA is going to go out of business, because they always manage to survive. And like I always say, most likely TNA will outlive us all at the rate they're going. And as far as his role in WWE, he's going to be doing NXT and developmental, working with that end of production. But I would not rule out him getting involved with Matt Hardy at some point, since he had such a big role in the Broken Matt storyline in Impact Wrestling. Got this one here from Cruz. What's more shocking than the Shockmaster? The fact that The Undertaker might wrestle at this year's WrestleMania, or a WrestleMania without The Undertaker? Well, just like death itself, it's inevitable that Undertaker will no longer be at WrestleMania. So that's not going to be shocking. I'm not sure what would shock me at this point. Undertaker wrestling doesn't really shock me, and him not wrestling doesn't really shock me. So I can't say I would choose one over the other. I guess I would be a little bit more surprised to see him wrestle again, since WWE had the perfect write-off for him at WrestleMania last year. He put his jacket and his hat and gloves in the middle of the ring, and that was a nice send-off. So for him to wrestle again, I think it kind of ruins that moment. But maybe WWE's plan here is for Undertaker to beat John Cena at WrestleMania and end his career as a winner instead of losing his final match. And Cena doesn't need to beat Undertaker. It's not necessary. But I mean, if Undertaker loses at WrestleMania, I will really not understand that. The only reason I could see Undertaker wrestling is to win his final match before retiring. So you asked me what would shock me? What would shock me is Undertaker wrestling at WrestleMania and then losing again. That to me would not make sense. Got this one here from Marcus Hunter. How would WCW have turned out if Eric Bischoff bought it back in 2001 without the TNT deal? Well, there's nothing to really speculate on this because the reason Bischoff couldn't buy it is because Turner's company, Jamie Kellner, they decided to cancel WCW programming on TNT and TBS. So that was it. That was the nail in the coffin for WCW. And Bischoff's backers decided they were not going to buy WCW without television. Without television, WCW was essentially useless. It had little to no value. And that's why WWE was able to buy WCW at such a cheap price, because they were just basically getting the intellectual property and some of the contracts of the lower card guys and a few of the bigger guys. And that was it. That was all the value that WCW had. So WCW would not have even been bought unless there was a TV deal available, and WCW programming would have continued to air on TBS and TNT. This one comes from Dusty. I know the younger guys are not great, but the older guys are downright awful at this point, like Booker T. Well, good thing Booker T's gone. This might have been a slightly dated question. And the King, and even Cole to extent with the botches and rambling. When will they realize commentary is dragging down shows? I don't think Vince feels this way. I think Vince thinks the commentary team is great. You have to keep in mind, for all the things we say about Michael Cole and even Corey Graves, they are told what to say. They are instructed on what to say on television. They're not really given a lot of creative freedom. They basically have to say what is told to them in the earpiece by Vince. So they're just taking the instructions. If you don't like the commentary, I think a lot of it has to be put on Vince. Now, of course, there's also instinct and just being good at what you're doing. So with guys like Byron Saxton and Percy Watson and Tom Phillips, for that matter, they don't really have that ability. I mean, some would have the ability to think on their feet better than others, and some don't. As far as the passion goes, Mauro Ranallo did show some passion when he was commentating SmackDown. I think he was maybe held back a little bit, but he still showed more energy and more enthusiasm than any other announcer in WWE, even on SmackDown, which is overseen by Vince. In NXT, Ranallo has that total freedom because he's working under Triple H and not Vince. And I think that definitely makes a difference. But at the end of the day, you still have to be good at your job. And I think Ranallo's just naturally good at what he does, and that's why he gets these major jobs like calling the Showtime fight with McGregor and Mayweather, because he's just that good. People like Tom Phillips and Byron Saxton and even Corey Graves in NXT, they sounded virtually the same. So, yeah, I just think Ranallo is by far the best announcer in WWE. But Vince likes guys that will go out there and say what he wants them to say. And Michael Cole can do it really well. And the other guys, too, for the most part, can do it as well. That'll wrap it up for this edition of No DQ Video. Thank you guys so much for your support. I really do appreciate it. Stay tuned to NoDQ.com for the very latest regarding the fallout from the Royal Rumble, and also news regarding the upcoming Fastlane pay-per-view and Elimination Chamber. We have 2 more pay-per-views until the granddaddy of them all. Whoops, shouldn't have said that. See, if Vince was in my ear right now, I'd be in a lot of trouble, because you're not supposed to say that. WrestleMania 34. Oops, not supposed to say the number either. WrestleMania. 2 more shows until WrestleMania. the show of shows. How about that? The biggest extravaganza in all of entertainment. So that's it. I will see you guys next time.